Today's podcast is brought to you by Visa. With the capacity to process over 65,000 transaction messages every second, Visa has been bringing innovations to the way we pay for over 60 years. Imagine a world where, instead of just tapping to pay with Visa, you had to wait for everyone in front of you to cut a check. Everywhere you went. Imagine how much fun it'd be trying to track down your cousin in Milwaukee for league dues. That's why Visa's vision is to be the best way to pay and be paid everywhere so you won't have to. Whatever your goals are, Visa makes paying fast and easy. The only thing left to figure out is, where would you like to be? Visa, everywhere you want to be.
Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That was a bad mistake. That right there is the Hall of Famer Cris joining us live from Minnesota. This right here is Nick Wright. Good morning, CC.
Good morning, people. How you guys doing?
Good to see you, brother. Happy for your friend Steve Jordan last night getting his number retired in Minneapolis. Glad you're able to be there, my man.
Oh, absolutely. Watch that, then watch some NBA last night. Let's get it, people.
We've got a lot to get to today. Great show. Odell Beckham Jr. looked at his fancy watch and said this week it's time for him to step up his game. Patty Mahomes took another step towards starting on Sunday, which has my partner here apoplectic. But all eyes were on the NBA last night. Rockets and Bucks, that's where we're going to start. The much-anticipated pairing of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, taking on last year's MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks. Didn't exactly go according to billing, at least for the Rockets. Giannis fouled out with more than 5 minutes left, but not before dropping 30 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists in his triple-double. Russ was efficient, led the Rockets with 24. Harden wasn't. 2 of 13 from the floor. Bucks go on to take this 117-111. Here's Harden after the game when asked about his bad shooting night.
I didn't play well offensively the entire night. Give them credit, they came back and played well that second half. But this one is on me. I wasn't as aggressive enough, and that's what it was.
James, you said you weren't aggressive enough. How much of that is
it's me?
Their scheme.
It's me. I can get any shot I want to.
All right, guys, this is what we wanted to see. What were these two going to look like out on the floor? How are they going to be able to play together? Who's going to control the ball more? CC, I'll start with you. Will the pairing of Harden and Russ work for Houston despite dropping that first game?
Well, I believe it works from a functional basketball standpoint because both of them are outstanding. But there will be some limitations and there will be some issues. Last night wasn't one of those. Harden just couldn't hit his shot last night. But Russ, because he's such a great rebounder, Russ can get the ball when he wants to. Even though Harden talks about he can get any shot that he wants to, yeah, that's true. So Russ's ability to rebound, that puts the ball in his hands more than a guard typically would be able to have it. But the overall continuity, they had a huge lead in this game. They played, even with Harden being off for 3.5 quarters, the way the Rockets would want to play. But life is about expectations. And with Houston right now, with the team they have, and as well as they've played the last 3 years, it's about a championship. So for me, I'd have to say no, because I don't believe they're good enough to win a championship. Don't believe they're good enough defensively. And you could see that yesterday in losing a 16-point lead.
Well, I don't know if the Rockets can win a championship, but I think last night was, despite the loss, despite blowing a 16-point halftime lead, I think the Houston Rockets, the front office, the coaching staff, the players have to be thrilled with what happened last night, aside from the final result. Because you saw Harden and Russ combined for 23 rebounds and 21 assists. You saw when the starting five was out there, the Rockets were dominant. In just 16 minutes of the starting five altogether, they outscored the Bucks by 11. In the 32 minutes where it was any other lineup combination, they were outscored by 17. And Chris's point is, what happened last night was James Harden had what will be, at the end of the season, one of his single worst shooting nights of the year. He could not hit a shot, and he seemed stubborn about it. And that's, I think, what he was alluding to.
What do you mean stubborn?
he wouldn't go to the basket. He was like, I'm going to keep shooting until my shot starts falling, and it never started falling. And that's how you can lose to the Bucks, even though Giannis fouls out. Giannis had been brilliant up until the moment he fouls out, but once he fouls out, that's when the Rockets should be able to retake control of the game, and they weren't able to. The only real concern for me for the Rockets in the short term from last night is James Harden has lived on how he's officiated the last few years. He leads the league in free throw attempts every year. He has more 4-point play attempts than teams combined. Last night, the NBA, whether they were trying to or not, sent a message to James Harden. Not only are we not going to give you the calls on those 3-point attempts, we're going to call you for not just push-offs, but he got 2 offensive fouls where the foul was initiated with his shoulder, where he wasn't even extending the elbow, it was just his shoulder. If that continues, Harden is going to have to adjust. But I did think, you saw what could be some of the best of Russ getting the rebound, getting out in transition, Harden giving go. You saw them already getting on the same page in that regard.
Yeah, you see them trying to go out of their way. The thing that they have going for them is they are really friends off the court. So you're going to try to sacrifice. But ultimately, this is Harden's team. And neither one of these players, if you talk about what their weaknesses is, it's on the defensive end and also playing off the ball. So that will be an issue. You don't play your whole career playing the way they have, being ball dominant, and then now all of a sudden you become great off the ball. That's the difference between them and Steph Curry. Steph can still get a shot if he's not dribbling it. These guys are going to have to work. They're going to have to compromise. But ultimately, both of them have to change their game for this to work.
And to your point, Russell Westbrook said after the game, with regards to how he was playing and how Harden was playing. Look, that's why I'm here. I'm here to create shots for James Harden. But the pace last night seemed a little faster than we're used to for a normal Rockets game. Is that the strategy they're looking to keep throughout the season?
Well, if you're going to get the best out of Russell Westbrook, you're going to have to, especially on possessions where he gets the defensive rebound. There was a hell of a lot of those last night because in the game he had 16 rebounds, 12 of them defensively. You got to let him get out and go. The benefit of having a point guard who can rebound the way he does is he can start a secondary fast break even if it's not a situation where you would expect a secondary fast break. So, yeah, they're going to, when Russ is on the court, they are going to play a faster pace than Rockets teams have in the past, particularly when Russ is on the court without James Harden. The other thing that I saw last night from Russ, and which is why I think Russ is going to, might not average a triple-double, but he's going to have as much fun playing basketball this year as he has had in recent memory, is there is more spacing for him to slash to the basket than he has had at any point in his career. Even when he was with KD in Oklahoma City, aside from Kevin Durant, they didn't have the full complement of shooters that they have in Houston, and you could see Russ taking advantage of that already.
Yeah, they do have more shooters, but they also don't have as many guys to run the court. You make a great point about the 12 defensive rebounds, but a lot of time he was on a one-man how to control fast break. What they do is run to the three-point lines compared to running in transition and trying to get an easy bucket. So I believe, their coaching staff, they will make the type of adjustments because they haven't had a point guard like Russ, even though they've had Chris Paul, even though they've had Harden. Those guys don't defensive rebound an awful lot, and they weren't big at pushing the pace that Jenna talked about.
All right, so we'll talk about Giannis and the Bucks a little bit later, but in short, this new pairing, this once again, Russ and Harden, did it work? Do you think this is something we're going to see work?
I think that the Rockets, if Harden has a good offensive game or even an average offensive game, I think the Rockets would have looked like the best offense in basketball last night. I think they're going to finish the year as the best offense in basketball. Chris's skepticism about will it work in the postseason is totally fair. And by the way, it's all that matters in Houston.
Sure.
But in the meantime, I think this is going to be a very, very difficult team to beat. And losing to the Milwaukee Bucks, there's no shame in that.
Right.
They had more wins than any team in basketball last year.
All right, we got to take a break.
And did you guys see Russ's outfit before the game? I mean, he had that moving outfit, that like a cargo, something. I don't know where that came from.
I think he's going to have 82 unique outfits for all 82 games of the regular season.
Yeah, but now he's got to compete with Russ because now he's got two guys with interesting
both of them,
taste.
absolutely. Hey guys, Nick Wright here to talk about Lightstream credit card bills. Every month you get them with multiple payments and multiple due dates. Wouldn't it be easier to just have one payment at a lower rate? Well, you can with a credit card consolidation loan from my friends at Lightstream. Get a rate as low as 5.95% APR with autopay, lower than the average credit card interest rate of over 19% APR. Plus, the rate is fixed, so it will never go up over the life of the loan. You can get a loan from $5,000 to $100,000 with no fees. And you can even get your money as soon as the day you apply. Just for First Things First listeners, apply now to get a special interest rate discount. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/FTF. That's lightstream.com/FTF. Of course, subject to credit approval, rate includes 0.50% auto pay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/FTF for more information.
Browns will be tested Sunday when they head to New England to face the New England Patriots. So Baker and this Cleveland team facing the best defense in the league. The Pats are huge 11.5-point favorites according to Fox Bet. Second largest spread on Sunday. See any chance the Browns can pull off the mighty upset against the Patriots?
Yeah, there hadn't been an NFL game. I've been doing this too long to be like, you know something, this team doesn't have a chance. All 32 teams do have talent, but these are the things that are going to have to happen. They're either going to have to score on special teams or they're going to have to score 2 defensive touchdowns. You can't rely on that offensive line, given the pressure that New England has put on every team the first 7 games. They're going to need some assistance. And Chubb is the MVP for the Browns. If they're able to get it done, he's got to touch the ball 25 times, milk out that clock, try to go through the heart of that New England defense, force them into man-to-man coverage, and then Landry and OBJ on the outside can make some big plays. But that is the challenge. You have to shorten the game. You have to win time possession. Baker has to have a clean game, no turnovers, but that defense has to create several turnovers, and I want to see a couple scores. And Nick, you challenged the guy. I used to do a segment when I worked for another network called Where You At? When a good player used to disappear, we used to put like the spotlight on him. And Myles Garrett, the defensive end who got off to a fast start last couple weeks, not the productivity. If he is on number 12 in Tom Brady, the chances for the Browns are realistic. But this would be one of the biggest Browns wins in a number of years, Nick.
So, Chris, I have not obviously been doing this as long as you, and I am not afraid to say,
yeah, but you've been covering it long enough not to be stupid.
Right, but I still am one that will occasionally say they got no chance. This game's over before it starts. Defensive scores, non-defensive scores, lightning strikes. But that's not how I feel about this football game. I think the Browns have a viable path to victory. I think the Browns, there's a few things that have to be noted. One is the schedule. The Browns had a bye week. The Patriots played on Monday. You're never going to have a bigger discrepancy in time to prepare than what you have in this game right here, with the Patriots on a short week and the Browns having the week off. That's first of all. Second of all, the Browns offense, if you look at it on a per-play basis, is a top 8 offense in football. They're 7th in the league in yards per play. So why are they outside of the top 20 in every other main category? Because they keep turning the ball over. Because they don't get into the red zone enough. They don't score enough points. They don't accumulate enough yards because Baker's been a turnover machine. Obviously, they have to play a clean football game. I don't think what the Patriots did against Sam Darnold and the Jets, I don't think you can do that effectively against the Browns because Beckham's there. If you go cover 0, if the Browns are smarter than the Jets were and say we're going to get the ball out immediately, Beckham is such a great route runner, and I would argue, and Chris we've talked about this off the air a bunch, where he is maybe the best in the league is at his release point, at his break point in the route. Man-to-man coverage with no safety help can turn a 4-yard slant into a 70-yard touchdown. So I don't think Belichick's going to put the defense in that position. But you also mentioned, Chris, the most important player in the football game, Myles Garrett. That the Browns Nick Chubb as well, but the Browns defense has to stay in the backfield on Tom Brady. They do those things. I think they could win this football game. Also, this is without question, no matter what we think of the Browns, this is the best team the Pats have played this year, other than the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills were in that football game throughout and only didn't win the game because they had a pump blocked for a touchdown. So I would be surprised if Cleveland won, but it wouldn't be the monumental upset that I think the point spread indicates it would be.
I think. Go ahead, Cece.
Go ahead, Jenna.
No, I was going to say, to me, I think a lot of this does come down to Baker Mayfield, and we've been talking about it. And you say they're just going to have to play a clean game, obviously. Well, that's not a given, the way this team has been. Penalties, the way Baker's been holding onto the ball. Belichick knows that the minute Baker has to rush out of the pocket or the minute Baker is sort of throwing on the run, he's really inefficient. Isn't that going to be the key for them? I mean, making sure that Baker is uncomfortable throughout the game?
There is no doubt, Jenna. Nick and I both had very valid comments and everything, but there is no path to victory unless Baker Mayfield. We're trying to move it other ways because we can't depend on Baker. The turnovers have really hurt this defense. The defense also hadn't had their starting corners be able to play so they can put a lot of pressure on the opposition. But, Nick, back to your point as far as what the Jets, it's a classic example of New England. If you watch the Jets game, in the Browns game, they're going to do something totally different than what they did in the Jets game. You can't play zero coverage against wide receivers that the Browns have because you get too many yards after the catch. If you make one guy miss, then you could be off to the race. They didn't have any respect for Sam Darnold and him seeing ghost and the wide receiving core of the Jets. They do have respect for OBJ and Jarvis Landry and Baker Mayfield's overall arm strength. So watch how they rush the minimum, drop 7 or 8, trying to force Baker Mayfield into making mistakes.
But if that is the case, obviously Baker's going to have to, for the first time all year, not turn the ball over. He's 6 games, all 6 he's had a turnover. Half of them he's had 3 turnovers. Maybe they can survive 1 turnover from Baker Mayfield.
Against the best defense.
Well, maybe, but they certainly cannot survive a multiple turnover game, which is why I put an enormous amount of the pressure on this game on Freddie Kitchens. Listen, man, Freddie Kitchens got this job. He got elevated all the way from running backs coach to offensive coordinator to head coach. Why? Because of his game planning, because of the rapport with the offense and with Baker. This has to be a Nick Chubb-centric game plan, and when no 5-step drops, certainly no 7-step drops, boom, 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 out quickly. Neutralize the pass rush that way, because that is going to be the way Baker has a chance to play a clean football game. But the Browns have been disappointing, and they have not lived up to my expectations, certainly. But they still do have the talent that we talked about in this offseason. The Patriots have not played talented offenses. How many guys on the Browns would be the most talented player, skill position-wise, on any of the teams the Patriots have played? When they played the Giants with no Saquon. I know Le'Veon Bell's on the Jets, but aside from that, when they play Washington, like when they play Miami, Jarvis would be the best guy. Odell would be the best guy. Chubb would be the best guy. So I do want to see this Patriots defense, which is on a historic run, against a team with viable weapons and how they respond to it. That'll be very, to me, instructive on how dominant this Pats defense is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, one little small thing that I want to watch. Jenna, I know you and your family, you watch that New England, watch them closely. But they made a couple roster changes this week, something that we should watch for. Josh Gordon put him on injured reserve. We don't know the reason why. We know they're hurting for wide receivers. Michael Bennett, trade him to the Dallas Cowboys for a conditional 6th or 7th round pick. Now, these are dynamic players. And I know that Bill Belichick thought that that these players would be in their plans this year. I'm not saying it's going to alter where they are. I just think it's something that we should watch. Mohamed Sanu trying to come over, acclimate to Tom Brady in New England. To me, that's a lot of moving parts for a team that's dominated the NFL for 20 years. I just think it's something we should just watch moving forward.
All right, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. Yesterday, they acquired defensive end and Super Bowl champ Michael Bennett from the Patriots for a conditional 7th round pick. Remember, Bennett had some philosophical differences with some members of the Patriots coaching staff in New England, and that never ends well for the player. See, how much does this trade bolster the Cowboys' defense now?
It really gives them some help on the defensive line that has had some struggles. He's one of the most versatile defensive linemen that we have. That means he can play interior, defensive tackle. He can also move out on the edge, do a lot of line stunts. Really smart football player. Also, at the end of his career, a guy that's been traded 3 times in about a year, you look for him to be able to help out this Dallas team. Jerry Jones made the call. He's getting them relatively cheap, basically a 6th or 7th round pick, depending on how well he plays. But it's a needed boost to a defensive line that could use someone that has the versatility that he brings. Jerry Jones wanted to know one thing in making this trade. Will he stand for the national anthem? Once he got the right answer, that being yes, he said, well, we'd love to have him in Dallas. He's from Dallas, so looking to end his career on a high note.
Well, so listen, as far as all these trades that have happened, a bit of a flurry of trades over the last couple weeks, this is the best value any team got, and it's not close. A player of Michael Bennett's caliber for, at worst, a 6th-round pick and maybe a 7th-round pick is elite value for the Dallas Cowboys. And Chris's point on the versatility, I know we think of Michael Bennett as a defensive end, and you might say, well, they've got Robert Quinn who's playing well and DeMarcus Lawrence who's playing well. Is it going to be? He can play D-tackle. Mm-hmm. You can have all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. And his production sacks-wise last few years has been good but not great. But his production on quarterback knockdowns, hits, hurries, pressures, those have all been in the upper 10th percentile, if you will, in the NFL, which is why it's so perplexing to me. And I don't know what the story is here. But 3 of the smartest franchises in the league over the last 18 months have given him away. Seattle traded him for a 5th to Philly, who then traded him for a 5th to New England, who then traded him for a 7th to the Dallas Cowboys. So there must be something, either a locker room lawyer.
Nick, I can explain this to you.
Yes, please.
Pete Carroll. They were moving off the old group. Mm-hmm. Richard Sherman, my man, the safety, Earl Thomas. Cam Chancellor was retiring. So that whole group was leaving out, and they needed that money to be able to go out and try to participate in free agency. Okay. Philadelphia had decided with Brandon Graham, they gave him a new contract. They had already paid Fletcher Cox. He was talking about, I need more money. I'm just as good as these guys. So Philadelphia had to trade him. In New England, it boils down to this. You're not going to talk to me that way.
Right.
All right? You're not going to talk to me that way. I'm a grown man. I got championship experience. All right? I played a long time in this league, and I deserve more respect than he was getting from his coaches there. That's why he ends up in Dallas. Not excuses, but that's what's happened to him over the last year. Seattle to Philly, Philadelphia to New England, and New England now to Dallas.
All right, well, let's talk about one of Bennett's former teams, Philadelphia. Carson Wentz and the Eagles will be in Buffalo to face the Bills on Sunday. The 5-1 Bills. Eagles are reeling, losing 2 straight games to fall to 3-4, and this week dealing with anonymous sources and reports of locker room mayhem. All right, CC, how do the Eagles get back on track this week after everything that we've heard and read that has been going on in that locker room there?
It's really hard to overcome bad football, because there's so many things that have to happen. You know, this is not the other sports where you make an adjustment. Man, if we're in the World Series, we get a guy to pitch a good, strong innings, 6 innings. No matter what your bats are, you're going to be in the game. In football, you have to have so many moving parts. The defense, I think there was more holes on that defense than we suspected. The corners we knew would have some problems. Linebacking corps had some problems. We thought the defensive line would be dominant. They haven't been dominant. Offensive line rated as one of the best in the league. They haven't been that. I'm satisfied with the quarterback play and the inconsistency from a passing game standpoint. And that's the thing that's kind of troubled me. As good as their wide receivers have been the last couple years, why do they go through 3 and 4 game gaps where, wow, they don't throw the ball as effectively? The roles for the wide receivers aren't mapped out. Alshon Jeffries, he really has a problem with Carson Wentz because I believe he liked Nick Foles. D-Jack's been out of the lineup, and Carson Wentz really wants to throw some deep balls to him. Nelson Aguilar has been inconsistent. Zach Ertz has been their most consistent, but because the quarterback likes him, you start to find the little guy starting to talk and everything. So this is what happens when you lose. There's a lot of problems on this team, and one victory won't solve that. One team meeting won't solve that. One prediction by the coach won't solve that. It will take at least a month of football, and if they don't get it together quick, Their season's going to be over with, and there's going to be a lot of disappointment through the streets of Philadelphia.
And, man, the Bills have a great defense. And the Bills, while they haven't beaten quality opponents yet because they haven't played many, the one great team they played them down to the wire in New England. So there is, in fact, the Eagles are the underdogs this weekend. Like, this is an uphill battle, even though you're playing a team in Buffalo that not a lot of people before the year had a lot of expectations for. There are, to me, right now, two major issues with Philly other than the offensive line and defensive line not playing up to their ability. The secondary, unfortunately, maybe playing exactly up to their ability, which is not a great secondary. One is, how ready to play are they on a week-in, week-out basis? And the other is Carson Wentz.
From the beginning of the game, Nick.
Say it
That's
again?
what you're talking about. Yes.
The beginning of the game.
They get off to those slow starts.
On both sides of the ball, see, over the last 2 years, the Eagles are 30th in the NFL in points per game in the first quarter. This year, they are 30th in the NFL in points per game allowed in the first quarter. So you've got a bottom three offense and a bottom three defense in the first quarter of football games. Yes, that's on the players, but if you are picking it up substantially, if you are one of the better third quarter teams or second quarter teams in football, it also has to do with the fact you are either being out-schemed or, I don't want to say out-motivated because pro athletes are supposed to be self-motivated, but something's not going right for Philly to start games, whether they take the ball or don't take the ball. So that's one thing they're going to have to figure out. The other issue is this. Carson Wentz has been two different quarterbacks if he's had a deep threat or not a deep threat. We forget about Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith is not an elite wide receiver, but he's an elite deep threat. And we can show you the numbers of when, with or without, this is just Deshaun Jackson or Torrey Smith on the field. When he has one of them on the field in his career, he's 22 touchdowns, 3 picks, and a 101 rating. If he has neither of them on the field, he's 61 touchdowns, 29 picks, and a 90 rating. So how much of it is, we always talk about Cris, Zach Ertz is his favorite target. How much of it is, if you don't have a deep threat, your favorite target gets double teamed. Your favorite target doesn't have as much space because Zach Ertz doing the intermediate stuff, and it doesn't open the field up. So I don't think it's so much that if Deshaun were there, Deshaun would be on pace for a 1,500-yard season, as much as if Deshaun were there, it opens up the rest of the offense like Torrey Smith did in 2017.
No, Nick, you make a great point. West Coast offense, people talk about getting the ball out of your hand, and that's what Doug Peterson runs. But the West Coast offense, they always typically have a big shot on the field. If you want to get aggressive, Bill Walsh, that's what he did. Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young. Yeah, it was conservative. 3-step drop, hit a slant. Catch after the run after the catch. But if you got too aggressive, they would throw that ball down over the top of you. And what you start to see is the offense starts to get crowded if they don't have a deep threat. Nick, I think that's a great graphic that you have. A quarterback, we always talk about, oh, man, his tight end, oh, it's his luxury. No, I'm going to tell you what a luxury is. If I can throw the ball over top of their head and get some easy yards. So West Coast offense, you need a deep threat. And they have suffered. This offense has suffered, and it's affected Carson Wentz when he does not have one. Tremendous point by you, though, Nick.
Way to go, Nick.
Appreciate that. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Jenna.
Your hair looks great, too. Hey, if the Eagles lose...
Steve Smith at NFL Network says your hair is amazing.
Oh, shout out Steve Smith, my guy. Go ahead. What were you about to say, Jenna?
Likes my shirts. Eagles will drop to 3-5 if they lose.
Yeah.
With everything else that's going on the field and off the field, does this become a must-win game for the Eagles this weekend?
Well, here's the only problem with calling any game.
Nick, stop, man.
What?
This is a must-win, bro.
But Cris, I don't believe in the Cowboys is the problem, and so not yet.
Okay.
And so in any other division in football, yes. But if they lose, they're still one. The Cowboys off this week. They're one game behind Dallas. The Eagles lost the game they needed to win for me to take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender. That was last week against Dallas. So that ship has sailed for me.
Right.
But as far as can they make the playoffs, man, Dallas we know is one Tyron Smith injury away from going in the tank. One Amari Cooper sprained ankle away from going in the tank. So no, it's not a must-win game because of the division they're in.
Back here, first things first, we're joined by former NFL quarterback Danny Cannell.
What's going on? How we doing?
Welcome to the show. Great to have you here. So we're glad you're here. The one thing we've been discussing all week, which no one can come to agreement on, is Patrick Mahomes and whether or not he should play this week. Last week, he dislocated his kneecap. At the time, it was expected he was going to miss a couple of weeks, at least. But he was back at practice on Wednesday and then again yesterday. Yesterday, took reps with the second team as the Chiefs prepare for the Green Bay Packers on Sunday. Now, Mahomes' offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, said, quote, Pat looked like Pat. So, Danny, I ask you, should Patrick Mahomes play this Sunday against the Green Bay Packers?
First of all, let me say it's outstanding that we're even having this discussion after the panic that set in for NFL fans, Chiefs fans, when that Thursday night when he went up in that heap. Having said that, I think it would be absolutely asinine to send him out there this quickly after an injury like that. That was as scary as it was. He has to be 100% without question normal, fully healed, absolutely nothing remaining from that knee injury. If that's the case, that's a different discussion. But the Patrick Mahomes that I see these clips of practice looking a little bit hesitant, there's a slight limp in there, I would not in no way, shape, or form have him out in the field.
I would go even a step further than that, and I know Cris feels differently.
Both of you are crazy.
Okay, well, real quick, no matter how he looks this week, it wouldn't be available to him. Because we also know he's not just dealing with the knee. He's been dealing with the ankle all year. This is an opportunity for the ankle to get right. The offensive line, we don't know if the offensive line, the left guard and left tackle, are going to be fully back or not. We also know that the Chiefs, because of what's going on in the AFC, the Texans lost last week, the Raiders lost last week, they do have them, and the Chiefs, without Patrick, were able to beat the Denver Broncos in going away, so they didn't all of a sudden keep them alive in the division. They have a bit of a margin. I know Patty is going to want to get out there, and the fact that he was fourth team reps on Wednesday and now second team reps yesterday, so he seems to be being allowed to do more and more. But the only way this Chiefs season ends in disaster is not a first-round playoff exit. That's not it. The only way this Chiefs season ends in disaster is if what I thought happened a week ago yesterday happens, which is Patrick Mahomes suffers an injury that could alter the trajectory of his career. I know that's available to you at all times when you play football,
of course,
but it's obviously more available to you if you are not fully mobile with a maligned offensive line against a very good Green Bay pass rush. So I wouldn't give him the opportunity to play this week. I am starting to become open to the idea of next week, even though I had initially said the Titans game would be the first one. But this week would be a no-go for me, C.
Yeah, for me, I think you guys are really not looking at some of the facts. And the fact of the matter is, yes, he did dislocate his knee. Are we used to players dislocating their knee? No, we're not. But when we see him come back and he's available to do some light jogging on Wednesday, regardless of what your perspective is on a dislocated kneecap, obviously this was not a bad injury because the training staff would not jeopardize even having him out there in a knee brace running and everything. To explain why he went from fourth team reps to second team reps is because they're trying to put a game plan in and Patty can't go full speed right now. So they have Matt Moore in there so they can go at full speed so they can get the timing, so they decide what they're going to have in the game plan on Friday. Patty Mahomes doesn't need those reps. He just needs to be able to show the training staff and the coaching staff that he's mobile enough that he can protect himself. That's what this game is about when you're a quarterback. And you have a lower leg injury. The league is already protecting you because no one can hit you in the pocket, waistline or lower, so they're going to protect him. So for me, it's not about making a decision I'm going to play Sunday. It's about, can I be available for Wednesday's practice? And if I can, I try to do a little bit more on Thursday, try to do a little more on Friday. I don't make up my mind I'm going to play until I've been through these steps. Now, Danny Cannell, I remember you when you were younger and growing up in South Florida. Who was the quarterbacks that you grew up liking, Danny Cannell?
Dan Marino, number 13.
Okay,
GOAT.
do you think Dan Marino would have played with this type of injury?
I think he would have outstanding medical advice, as my dad was the team doctor at the time. But
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that.
But I would also say the same way that what Dan Marino meant to that Dolphins franchise, I think you might have to take Don Shula would have stepped in, although he was old school as it gets. He might have said, go ahead out there and play. You have to look long term. And this is a different era, CC, that we are talking about. It's hard.
What's the difference?
Well, the money that's involved, first of all, is astronomically more. I also think the fact that they do have this lead in the division does have to matter. If this is a playoff game or a game late in the season where maybe there's a chance for home field and something's at stake that's meaningful, then yes, then I think it's a different conversation. But because of where you are in the season, because Andy Reid has had a successful background with backup quarterbacks, he was 11-5. His backups were when he was in Philly. You have a good backup. You still have incredible weapons on offense. It's okay to buy an extra week of rest with Patrick Mahomes.
No, Danny, I'm so glad to have you because Danny's dad is a world-renowned doctor. Part of my career, he was my doctor. He's amazing. And the relationship between a player and the doctor's got to build trust a player that he's going to tell him the truth. Patty Mahomes has been telling the staff, I'm healthy enough that we can put a knee brace on me. That should show you that he's making progress. Obviously, he didn't have a great deal of swelling, so I do understand. Danny Cannell's dad, I would be working with him. But at the end of the day, once he clears me, it's up to me and the coaching staff. And I don't believe that they're making a mistake by having him out there. I just always tell people, I leave it up to my body. And if my body is ready, I'm going to try to push it and be there for my teammates. I've seen quarterbacks for the last 30 years put knee braces on in some form or fashion, go out there. The game is not different. All right? Patty Mahomes, even if he shatters his knee, Nick, he's going to get $200 million. If not in Kansas City, somewhere else. So he is that type of talent.
I don't even want to throw that out there.
He is that type of talent.
I agree with you. Listen, there is no injury short of a career ender that's going to change the offer the Chiefs make to him this offseason. Listen, I don't think Patrick's going to play on Sunday, and I don't want him to play. But Cris made a point yesterday off the air while we were walking from this building next door to our office that you haven't made yet today, but I want to make for you because it is, I think, an interesting one and one to think about. Cris said to me, he goes, Nick, best case scenario for you, well, how does Patrick Mahomes' career end? I said with him being one of, if not the greatest quarterback ever, him having a handful of MVPs, a handful of Super Bowl trophies, and being a pantheon player. And I think he has the talent for it. And Cris said, he goes, the guys who do that, they have moments like this. They have whether it's the MJ flu game or the Brett Favre, the game after his father passed away, the Monday Night Football. You have these iconic moments. To steal a line from WWE, good God, that's Patrick Mahomes' music. We're on national television against Aaron Rodgers when 10 days prior his kneecap was being relocated. Yep. He takes the field. And medically, that doesn't sway me, but sports storyline-wise, as far as what is going to be the story of Patrick Mahomes' career, that was a compelling point that I want to give, because I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. And Patrick, by the way, I'm sure thinks, yeah, I'm going to be one of those guys. Yep. One of the greatest who's ever done it, and this is going to be part of my story here.
Yeah, I think both of you make great points. I think you leave yourself the opportunity. I'm not trying to say be reckless. I'm not trying to say do something that I wouldn't do, but I would give myself a chance. And I'm not saying this to say this, but being out there with my teammates, it means something to me. Them guys knowing they could depend on me, it means something to me. Because the guards, the centers, the tight ends, they got knee injuries. They got ankle injuries. And you know what happens to them? Ain't nobody sitting around saying, hey, man, you should take a couple weeks off. I like them guys to know, regardless of what the money is, regardless of what my status is, I'm going to be out there playing ball with you if I can.
I love it. I'm sure Patrick Mahomes has that attitude too, but quarterbacks are different than all those guys that CC mentioned.
Yeah, y'all soft.
No, you got to protect them. I will say this. I think he has those moments in spades. Let's just see it play out over the next 10 years. We don't need to see it this week.
And stop talking about someone else signing Patrick Mahomes to a contract. How dare you?
Wait, that was your issue, not the knee broken in 200 pieces? So a different team is going to sign him? That's what your issue was. He's going to play his whole career for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, here we go. Kawhi and the Clippers in the Bay to face the Warriors in their new arena. The Claw poured in 21 points in 21 minutes, leading the Clippers to a big win. Steph Curry scored 23 points. He also turned the ball over 8 times, and he missed 9 three-pointers. Here's Warriors head coach Steve Kerr after the game.
I mean, this is not, not a one-off. This is the reality. There's going to be nights like this year, so you got to play through it, and you got to keep fighting and keep getting better.
I'm not a moral victory type of guy. I'm not leaving this game looking for something to build off on. We suck, and we got to get better.
Nick, you laughed throughout that interview.
Well, just listen, Steve Kerr just flatly saying, hey, man, y'all get ready. This is about to be rough. Yeah. I've never heard a coach say that after the first game. And Draymond saying, I'm not a moral victory guy. Yeah, Draymond, you were minus 35 in 28 minutes. Like, of course, there's not many moral victories to take from it. Now, as far as what did you want to ask me about overall? I apologize.
Is it more than likely looking pretty good they will not make the playoffs this year?
I won't go that far. I know a lot of people are going to say today that the Warriors are not going to make the playoffs. The problem is, if you have them out, who is taking their place? I feel like we are all very confident there's 6 teams that are going to be in the Western Conference playoffs. Lakers, Clippers, Houston, Utah, Denver are 5, to me, mortal locks. And Portland is a very close to a mortal lock. So there's 6 of them. Those other 2 remaining spots, I think the Warriors are getting one of them. I picked the Warriors to get one of them. Now, they're going to have to do it through Steph being special. And that, was the most concerning part of last night.
He wasn't.
Was not their defense. Because the defense, they're not going to give up 140 a night, but that's going to be a bottom 6, bottom 7 defense in all of basketball. The way to overcome that is Steph to be an MVP candidate. As we said, we thought he had the potential to be. Steph playing that poorly and looking that overwhelmed at times, if that continues, then of course they won't make the playoffs. But in the NBA, if you've got a top 5 guy, you make the NBA playoffs if the guy's healthy throughout the year. That's why I'm still betting on the Warriors to make it to the tournament.
Well, typically, Nick, when you have a top guy, you don't have some of the deficiencies that they have on the other side. If you look at him and D'Angelo Russell, I'm with you. I don't believe this is a good fit long term. They were minus 32 overall when they were on the court together. So with them being in the backcourt, you're going to be challenged defensively. But the Clippers took a page out of what they did in the playoffs. Not the Clippers, but other teams to the Warriors when they had injuries. They were double-teaming Steph around half court. He was forced into some bad threes. And with all those defenders around him, they forced him into those turnovers. So, Steve Kerr, I know you've had a great job the last several years, Steve, just looking up and down, watching your team win, not saying nothing. You're going to have to earn your money this year. You're going to have to come up with some schemes. You're going to have to come up with something offensively to be able to get guys involved. But Draymond shouldn't say we sucked. He need to look in the mirror. Draymond Green was awful. And, Nick, you had some stat of Draymond Green outside of 7 or 8 feet?
Last year, Draymond Green, not outside of 18 feet, outside of 8 feet, was 29% from the field. Now, we were just knocking Ben Simmons. If Ben Simmons took those shots, he wouldn't be much worse than 29%, and at least he can get to the rim. Like, Draymond got that big contract courtesy of my guy Rich Ball and Clutch Sports, and he gonna have to earn it this year by anchoring what will be a substandard defense and getting back to some of that playmaker role that he was so good at a few years ago.
And for those who are thinking Steph Curry, he should be in the conversation for MVP, Nick, I don't think his body's going to be able to take it. When you look at the wear and tear, the way they were trapping him, the way he was having to run off the ball, like even watching his body language, there were times during the game he was exhausted like this was a playoff game. So I don't know, with Klay probably missing most of the season at best, Steph's going to put up big numbers, but as far as MVP, his team's not going to be a top 4 seed. I don't think that's going to be on the board for Steph this year, his 3rd MVP.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because when we were talking about the start of the season earlier this week, we said there was really one path for the Warriors to be successful, playoff bound, all of it, and that was, well, Steph's going to have to play lights out every night. And I said, well, Steph usually doesn't have to play in the regular season. He doesn't have to be that successful. And you said, well, he's a superstar, and he's absolutely going to have to. Well, there's got to be another way. If it's not going to only go through Steph, you saw game 1, he wasn't a superstar.
No.
Give me another way.
There's no other way. There's no other way.
Really?
Listen, do you know guys who got big minutes last night? Glenn Robinson III, Eric Pascal. Listen, it turns out the Marquez Cris and Eric Pascal, that duo replacing Kevin Durant, that ain't great. And it's not good for your basketball team. It is all about Steph. And this is exciting. And people think I'm a Steph critic. I didn't love the Warriors once they added Durant, that thing.
Sure.
I'm excited to see Steph as a one-man show, because he has been, by everyone other than Michael Jordan, myself included, elevated into pantheon discussion for the league. And we've seen these other guys. We saw Duncan when he had Robinson. We saw Duncan before they had Manu and Parker as great players. We saw Duncan in different spots. We saw Michael Jordan, even though they didn't have playoff success, before Pippen got there, average 37 a game and get his team to the postseason. We've seen LeBron on super teams and on what Cris calls the 4 pieces of paper team, his last year in Cleveland. And we've seen those guys be successful. We've seen Harden with a star next to him, by himself, top 2 MVP in both situations. Now we get to see Steph without the second greatest shooter all time alongside him, who he's always had, without a league MVP alongside him, who he's had the last 3 years. And this is a big year for Steph. I don't want to be unfair, but I don't think I'm being unfair. This is a big year for Steph Curry's legacy, because if they go 32-50, because he doesn't have enough help, that then when you're talking about, is he the second greatest point guard of all time? Well, I know my guy Isaiah Thomas would say, I played on some teams that looked a lot like this Warriors team. We didn't go no 32-50. And so it is important for Steph that he doesn't carry them to a championship, but that he carries them to a playoff berth. At least for me, that is an important part of how we're going to remember this part of Steph's career, see.
And one thing, too, we have to realize is every night they're not going to be facing the Clippers.
Yep.
Top to bottom, the Clippers, they are the best defensive team that we're probably going to have in the NBA, them and the Philadelphia 76ers. But last night, what I thought was really, really intriguing was Patrick Beverley went right back to that junkyard dog mentality that he went in the playoffs with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, it only affected him for a short period of time, and then he just went to just annihilating him and just went on the attack offensively. Last night, they went after Steph. And with no Clay and no KD, Steph didn't have no fight in him. He tried to get into a chit-chat with them, but I just want to see how teams come after Steph this year, because it's easy to have swag when you got Clay, you got Draymond, you got KD, but now you by yourself. Let's see what you got, bruh. So this is I believe, a very, very revealing year for Steph Curry as far as his legacy.
Odell Beckham's trade was filled with promise, but also empty of results. Hasn't really translated to success yet for the Browns. We know it. He knows it. OBJ has just 29 receptions. That's tied for 39th this season. Odell said, quote, "It's definitely time for me to be more for this team." Chris Carter, does Odell need to be more involved for the Browns to have a chance, any chance, against the Patriots on Sunday?
Well, when the offense gets together, everyone needs to have that same message. Be selfish in the sense that not only OBJ, the left tackle, the left guard, the center, the right guard, the right tackle, the tight end, whoever's going to play, Jarvis Landry, the other receivers, Baker Mayfield, a whole backfield, they all need to improve. But Baker Mayfield is the key. Because when you turn the ball over, not only do you give the other team momentum, but you take possessions away. You take plays away from Nick Chubb. You take first downs away from Jarvis Landry. You take the ability to be able to analyze the defense and force yourself on them. You lose that because you don't have enough reps. You don't have the continuity. And then guys start to try to freelance because Chubb needs to touch it. Jarvis needs to touch it. OBJ needs to touch it. So when you turn the ball over, it really kills the continuity of the offense. And given the offensive talent that they have, they should be a top 5 offense given that talent and Baker Mayfield's accuracy. But the offensive line's inability to keep Baker clean and wide receivers and the playmakers, no consistency. So, yes, do a little bit more. If we all do a little bit more, this offense, that is the key to getting an offense turned around there in Cleveland.
Before I answer the question about this specific game, I want to say something about Odell this season, because Odell obviously has been the subject of a ton of criticism over his career, a lot of it because of his own actions, a lot of it because he's done some knucklehead things and said some knucklehead things. On a team that's underachieving, on a team that at times seems to not know what message it's trying to get out there and doesn't know what to focus on.
Or who they are.
Or who they are, all these things. Odell has not been part of the problem one time. We haven't played one soundbite of Odell saying, I don't know what the hell's wrong with the offense. I don't know why I'm not getting the ball more. You've got Baker complaining about the refs. Jarvis yesterday kind of seemed like he guaranteed a win over the Patriots, which is maybe not the way you want to go. Freddie Kitchens, I don't know if he knows what day of the week it is. And Odell has been a professional. And I know Chris Rock says you don't get credit for doing what you're supposed to do, but when you are a guy who hasn't always done what you're supposed to do, I do want to give Odell credit in that regard. They have 2 wins this year. One of them is directly because he was the best player on the court, best player on the field, that game against the Jets. Now, as far as the Patriots game, I think he does need to get more involved quickly. And I don't mean early in the game. I mean right after the snap. I mean, Odell is the best in football, especially now that Antonio Brown's not in football, at doing damage on a pass that travels 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. Doing damage on a pass that does not go far through the air because he is so fast, he's so quick out of his breaks, and he can make people miss. He is not the best in football at catching the long ball, but they're not going to have the opportunity for a lot of those this week. It is going to be a lot of Nick Chubb, and I would imagine, wide receiver screen to Odell Beckham is available to you. Ways to get the ball in a dynamic playmaker's hands.
But is that on Odell or is that on the game plan?
Oh, to me, that's on the game plan. Baker, it's not like there have been a lot of games this year, where Odell has a bunch of targets and he's dropping the football. I understand the easy pass drop has been an issue for him throughout his career, not so much this season. So, no, I don't think it's on Odell.
So for Odell to say, I need to do more, how do you do more if you're a wide receiver?
I think he's just trying to be a good teammate saying that. Saying, listen, everyone needs to do more, and Odell knows he's one of the highest paid. He's one of the most talented, so it has to fall on his shoulders to do more, even if it hasn't been his fault, so to speak, that he hasn't been doing more.
I only want Odell to do a little bit more, all right? And you said, I want him to do a little bit after the snap, something quick. You know what I want him to do something more? I want him to do something before the game. Baker Mayfield's struggling. He's struggling with the interviews. He's struggling with the NFL as far as finding him, things like that. OBJ cannot be a distraction before the game. Why wear a visor out there before the game that I know that they're going to rule illegal and make me change my helmet? Why wear a watch out there that is going to have a field official come up to me before the game when I'm around my teammates and tell me I can't play with that? When the situation they're in, I need everybody doing everything the right way. Yeah, I know everyone has personalities, but we're trying to get the season turned around. Why do I need that distraction on the field? OBJ could be helping out Baker right now in some of these small things because he's been in a ginormous market. He's been part of the marketing and everything. He should be a little more seasoned compared to, I'm going to get fined before the game. Baker's talking about fines after the game. So, yeah, I know football's about between the lines, but there's other little things that you can do for your teammates, especially when you're in a rut. If they were 6-0, if they were 5-1, I wouldn't care because it's working, but it's not working. So before the game, put the regulation stuff on, all right? Not all the extra stuff, so your teammates know that you're focused. I do believe that those little things, when you're a wide receiver, because people are watching, they help you. They help your teammates to be able to pull off a big upset like this.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.